Yo, in today's video I'll be talking about intensity techniques. If you don't know what these are, they're a way to make your training more effective in less time. They're more of a cherry on top that you add to your training. They're not necessary, but they might give you an extra 10-20% boost in hypertrophy. These techniques shouldn't be the main focus of your training, except for a few which I'll talk about, but for the most part, these are just some additions that you may want to add to your training, but you don't necessarily need to. So starting off with the first intensity technique, we got supersets. Now you'll know that I love supersets. They're the best way to shorten your workout while still getting the same amount of gains. You'll save a lot of hours in the long term using supersets. If you don't know what a superset is, it's basically when you do an exercise. So for example, you do a bicep curl, and then without any rest in between, you do a tricep exercise. So like a tricep extension, for example. And then you rest. So if you have a day where you do 3 sets of bicep curls, and after that you do 3 sets of tricep extensions, you can combine these two exercises and do 3 sets of tricep extensions supersetted with 3 sets of bicep curls, so that you cut that part of the workout in half. Because you don't really need to take a break and sit on your ass for 3 minutes after a set of bicep curls. Even if you take them to failure, you should still be able to do some tricep extensions to failure after that. It's not that demanding and you'll save a lot of time in the process. I personally superset everything except for compound movements for the legs. But at first it can become quite difficult to use supersets. You might see a drop in performance in the first few weeks because your body is not used to supersetting and you don't yet have the work capacity to superset. But after some time you'll get used to it and you'll be able to progress normally. And you should take it as a good thing that you improve your work capacity when you do supersets, because that's important for longevity. And if you skip cardio, which I don't recommend, at least you'll be a little more fit if you do supersets. So for all these reasons, I'll put supersets in the S tier. They don't directly help you gain more muscles, but they'll help you save more time. And with that extra time that you save, you might want to add extra sets to your session, for example, which can improve your muscle mass. Or you can just go home and be happy that you save half an hour every day. And if you want to go a step further, you can do some giant sets. I put a giant tortoise here to remember what this is. But yeah, giant sets. They are way more demanding than supersets. They are way harder. Because when you superset, you can rest for like a minute in between your sets still. But with giant sets, you don't really rest at all. Because for example, if you do something like tricep extensions, bicep curls, and calf raises, all in the same giant set, by the time you have finished your calf raises, you'll already be fresh for your biceps. Or triceps, I don't remember what I said first. So you won't really sit on your ass at all. Now giant sets might not be very practical if your gym is very busy, but if you can get away with giant sets, I'd say do them, because you'll save even more time. And plus you're not supposed to only rest a minute in between sets anyways. So you'll allow yourself to have the necessary rest time without feeling that you're wasting time. So I'll put giant sets next to supersets, because they're pretty much the same thing. And if you can get away with doing giant sets, do giant sets instead. But maybe don't do giant sets on compounds, unless you're already very familiar with doing supersets with compounds. Because otherwise you might run into recovery issues and you might not be able to progress. But giant sets are a great progression to supersets. And when you do 3 sets of giant sets, you can even start doing 4 sets of giant sets and stuff like that to save even more time. I wouldn't really go more than 4 exercises in a set because then you're gonna rest too much. But yeah, they're great time savers, both supersets and giant sets. Now something that will directly boost your gains is having a slower eccentric on your last reps. This is something that I recommend you do on every exercise where you finish at the bottom of the movement and it's safe, because it costs nothing and you'll squeeze a little bit more gains from it. So for example, on a bicep curl, if you know that you did your last rep and you went to failure, instead of lowering the weight super fast, try to resist it and lower it as slow as you possibly can. You already went to failure, you're not gonna do another rep. So might as well hold that negative for a bit before you re-rack. Obviously this wouldn't make sense on something like a bench, because the bench you finish at the top, or a squat. But on curls, on extensions, and any other movement that you can think of where the lowering part of the movement is the end of the movement, you can try to do this, and I recommend you to do it. Now this becomes a bit tricky when you always do this. I think using a slow tempo for no reason can be bad. You shouldn't focus that much on your tempo. But try to slow it down on your last reps, especially on your last rep. Because some people take this to the max. They do a 20-second eccentric on every rep, which in turn will just make them use baby weight. And it's also very hard to track progression that way, because did you really progress or did you just go faster, you know? So that's why I recommend you to slow it down only on your last reps. And on your last rep, go as slow as you can, because you've already finished the movement. So yeah, I think that if you only use this on your last rep, or maybe on your last 2 reps, this can be an easy S tier. I know I'm giving many S tiers, but many of these techniques are actually really good. But one technique that is not good is doing 1.5 reps. I'll show a video to explain it on the screen. But this is basically when you go down and then you go up, but not all the way up. You go down again and then you go all the way up. So you do a rep and a partial basically. Yeah, this is more of a circus thing to me. It can look like it can work, and it does work to some extent. But people who do this don't really know anything about the gym really. It does make you more sore, but there's no really point in doing it, because this is combining partials and normal reps into one, which doesn't make sense because partials you only do after you can do your normal reps. I'll also talk about partials in a bit. But doing partials when you're already fresh doesn't really make sense, and it messes up with your groove. Like, yeah, maybe you can do this with baby weight, but when you actually start putting on some weight on the bar, you won't want to do this, because it messes up your rhythm. And I'm not talking about momentum and stuff like that. It's a real thing. When you have a shit rhythm like this, you can't push as much as you want to push. Will this kill your gains? No, but there's not really a point in doing this, and you're better off doing normal reps. So for that I'll put it in D tier. It's not the worst thing ever, but it doesn't really make sense to do it. I guess it can make sense if you want to get more out of less weight, if you somehow maxed out the weight stack on something like a Bulgarian split squat. But there are other better ways to get more out of less weight, so I'll leave it here in the D tier. Now I'll talk about partials. Partial reps are done after you can't do your normal full range of motion reps anymore. So after you fail on a movement, you're just gonna do the bottom part of the movement without locking out. That way you can squeeze a couple more reps. I wouldn't count these reps though. Or you could write them down separately from your normal reps, so that you don't accidentally believe that you're progressing, because it's way easier to get another partial rep than to get another full rep. You count them separately. But they're great for the same reason that slowing down the negative on your last rep is great. Because you're supposed to do partials after you've already failed. And you have 2 options. You either do some partials or other intensity techniques that I'll talk about in a bit, or you re-rack the weight. So I think that the better choice is to do some partials, if the exercise allows it. Don't do partials on compound movements and stuff like that. You can do them on pull downs, lateral raises, bicep curls, extensions. Partials are pretty good. I'll put them in the A tier. The reason why they are not in the S tier is because they might make you weaker in your upcoming sets if you overuse them. So if on the first set of pull downs you did 10 reps, and you did partials and you kind of overdid them, you did partials for maybe a little too much, on your upcoming set you might only get 7 reps because you fatigued yourself too much. That's why if you use partials, I'd recommend you to use them on your last set. You can use them on your first sets too, but be careful to not get overly fatigued, because you have upcoming sets and you still want to keep yourself in the rep range. Now all these next ones are pretty similar to partials. The next one we have here is forced reps. This is only if you have a gym partner. But this is where you push to failure, you can't lift anymore, and your partner helps you lift the bar with you. And yeah, these are pretty nice as well, for the same reason why partials are nice too. But sometimes your partner helps you too much. They don't really know how much they should lift with you, you know? They might take too much load of the bar, but you could have lifted that. And you need a gym partner for this, of course. And I wouldn't count these reps as well, because those reps that you do with your partner don't count either. So I'd say that these are pretty good, but partials are more precise, because you know exactly when you want to stop doing them. Your partner can't really tell. But these are pretty fun, yeah. Now next up, similar to partials and forced reps, you can do some cheat reps. If you want to failure, maybe you don't want to do partials, but maybe you want to swing your body a little bit and do full range of motion, but with a little bit of cheating, especially if you combine this with slowing down the negative. Obviously, some people are against the idea of cheating. Personally, I'm not a fan either, but if you enjoy it more than doing partials, you can do it, especially if the exercise allows it. The learning curve of cheating is a little higher than partials, but they can sometimes be better, because you get that negative, and partials might not be as good sometimes. So, for example, a lot of people like to cheat on bicep curls because it feels better than doing partials. And I agree with that. Just don't do cheat reps on most things. I'll put them in the A tier next to partials, because they can be just as good in my opinion. Just be careful and don't injure yourself. Don't actually ego lift, but cheat. There is a difference between ego lifting and cheating. And I talked about cheating when you reach failure, but there's another type of cheating. You can also cheat throughout the whole movement. And this can become quite tricky to track, but if you standardize it, you can get some gains from that. On things like pull downs, being strict doesn't really help that much. You can use a little bit of cheating to smooth out the strength curve. Make sure that you don't cheat more in one session rather than in another. But yeah, cheating is kind of hard to learn at first, but once you get good at it, you can use it pretty well. And it can be a great tool, especially for pull downs and bicep curls. Now we have rest pause reps. Same just like the other examples. Once you fail, instead of doing reps or cheating or using forced reps, you can pause for like 10 seconds and do a normal rep. After you do that, try to get another. And if you can't, try to pause for longer. Try to get another rep. That way you can squeeze another 3 or 4 reps with the same form and same weight. And obviously these reps are gonna be very intense because you've already failed. But now you just do some rest pause. And this method can be great on exercises that you want to use more weight on, but don't want to do less reps. So on a heavy barbell curl, you might do 5 reps without resting in between the reps. And once you did 5 reps, you can start resting a bit. 10 seconds, you do 6. Another 15 seconds and you do 7. Another 15 and you do 8. That way you go to RPE 10 a bunch of times. And this can be tracked, unlike partials or cheat reps, forced reps, because it's not like you're gonna do a lot more reps, right? Just remember that your last 3 reps are post reps. And you can track them. I really like doing these on biceps especially. But you can do pause reps on pretty much anything. Even on stuff like squats and bench. But be careful and try to not fail. And if you do fail, have safety bars obviously. But I'll put pause reps at the top of the A tier. They're not quite S tier because there might be slip-ups. You might rest longer and think that you've progressed, but instead of resting 10 seconds, you rested 20. But still, using rest pause is my favorite technique out of all of these in this category. Now let's get into using drop sets. If you don't know what a drop set is, it's when you go to failure on a movement and then you drop the weight and you go to failure again. That's basically all of it. The first type of drop sets are drop sets where you change the exercise. So you go to failure on a pull down and then you do some rows. Yeah, I don't really see the point in doing this. You're better off changing the weight on the pull down since you're already there. You're kind of wasting time for no reason doing the drop set like that. I'm not too big of a fan of this type of drop sets. You can do it if you want to, but they just don't really make sense to me. I'll put them in B tier though, because they're not bad, but they're just a waste of time and energy in my opinion. Now we got the usual way to do drop sets, which is when you do something like a tricep extension, for example, you go to failure and then you drop the weight by a bit and you go to failure again. And then you can do that again if you really want to. Now I do like drop sets. They're pretty cool. But like I said with the partials example, they can overtire you. Doing a drop set on your first set is a bad idea in my opinion, because drop sets take a lot out of you. Your first set might have seemed good, but your second set will be much worse, and your third set will be even worse. You want to keep yourself in the rep range that you've prescribed for that movement, because if you get out of the rep range, it messes up with the intensity window, and it also destroys your progression. So I wouldn't do drop sets like that. The way I would do drop sets is by doing it on your last set, on your last exercise for that muscle group, as a finisher basically. And you can combine those intensity techniques, you know. After you finished, let's say, a tricep extension, you lower it down slowly, then you do some partials, then you drop the weight, you do some drop sets. After you can't do that lower weight anymore, you do some partials with that, and then you're done. But yeah, drop sets are not that good if you do them at the start of your workout. They're more of a finisher, and they end the workout on a high note, because you get a pretty nice pump with them. Starting your workout with them might feel great, but in the long term, it won't really lead to actual progress, because like most intensity techniques, you can't really track them. But I'll put drop sets in the A tier. as well. Now next up we have cluster sets. Cluster sets are a way to get a lot of work done in a very short amount of time. This is where you take a weight that you can normally rep for like 12 reps and you only do 5 reps. You rest 15 seconds and then you do another 5 reps. You rest 15 seconds and do another 5 reps. And once you can't get 5 reps anymore, you do 4 reps. Rest another 15 seconds, another 4 reps. Then you do 3 reps, 2 reps, 1 rep, till you can only do 1 rep after you rest for 15 seconds. And that typically takes between 3 to 6 minutes. And I would only do 1 set of this. And of course I would do it at the end, just like drop sets. You get a song that's 3 to 6 minutes, you play that song, you get a timer, and you go to work, you know? That way you can get a lot of work done in a very short amount of time. This can be especially great for leg extensions like I put here. After a leg day where you do some squats, some deadlifts, at the end, if you want to do leg extensions, you can just do a cluster set instead, if you feel like you need some more quad work. This can work on anything that drop sets can work on. But to me, they're a little more fun, the drop sets, and you also get more work done with them. And you get more high quality reps done, because you still use a relevant weight. So I'll put these in the S tier. Cluster sets are a nice intensity technique, and they're pretty underrated. Though I wouldn't do more than 1 cluster set per workout. And I would even only do like 3 cluster sets a week, because you only do them when you feel like you need some more volume, but you don't feel like spending another 15 minutes in the gym. Next up, we have pausing. And this is not rest pause, but just pausing at the bottom of the movement to make it harder. This is mostly done on compound movements, but you can do them on isolations as well. People do this to get more out of less weight, and it also standardizes their form. Because when you pause on a bench, you remove the momentum aspect of it, and you make sure that your chest is doing most of the work. So pausing can be good. Some people take it to the extreme. I wouldn't pause more than 5 seconds. Even 3 seconds is quite a lot to me. I would just do a little 1 second pause, you know, to make sure that the momentum stops. You pause for more than 5 seconds and it becomes more detrimental to your hypertrophy rather than beneficial. Yeah, pausing for a long time might help powerlifters, but for bodybuilding, it's not that important, but doing a slight pause can help, so I'll put this in the A tier. Now, next up we have occlusion training. This is where you wrap a band or a strap or a cuff around the limbs, usually the arms and the legs, to partially restrict the blood flow during the exercise. I don't know too much about the science of it, because I haven't really done it that much, but it makes you lift less, much less, and you get a better pump, and it's a little bit friendlier on the joints. It can also help with my muscle connection and stuff like that. But I'm not too sure about it, I haven't done it that much. I only used it I think like 3 times, and that was like 4 years ago, so. But you can try it out and see how you like it. Some people swear by it, others don't like it at all. But it can be beneficial, and you would normally use this on a bicep curl and leg extensions. And triceps as well. But yeah, just because I don't know too much about it, I'll put it in B tier. And you can research it further. But from what I know about it, it can be pretty useful. I just didn't really like it when I was using this technique. That's why I stopped. And that goes for anything on this list. If you don't like doing something just because I put it in S tier or A tier, you don't have to do it. Next up we have pre-exhaustion. This is where you pre-exhaust the muscle before a compound movement. So for example, doing some flies before your bench, because some people don't really feel their chest when they bench, they're more shoulder dominant. By pre-exhausting their chest before their bench, they'll make their chest more tired. And they will bench less, but at least they'll feel their chest now. Yeah, this technique I feel like is more for beginners, or for people who don't have a great mind-muscle connection. But if you do, there's not really a point in doing this. You can also do this on things like elbow rows before you do pull-ups and stuff like that to activate your lats, because I know that some people don't feel their lats either. But yeah, if you don't have the problem of going to failure with your desired muscles, then pre-exhaustion is not that important. I mean, it doesn't matter. Pre-exhaustion doesn't matter because it's more of a fix to a problem. And if you don't have the problem, you don't need the fix, obviously. So I'll put in B tier as it can help some people, but you don't need it. And yeah, that's the list. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything that I put in here. And let me know if I forgot something. And yeah, I'll see you next time.